If you've only been doing IB past papers from 2024 and before, here is something you need to be aware of. Examples. According to the new syllabus, you are expected to know named examples of organisms for some topics. There are exam questions that will ask you about an example with no context.
Oh no. What are the examples?
Do Control F, common name in the syllabus, and you'll find them.
That's so boring. Can you turn them into stories?
Yeah, we can do that. A black-throated loon and a ringed seal were friends. The black-throated loon envied the ringed seal. The loon said, "Oh, my friend ringed seal, it must be so nice to live in water. You don't have to worry about floating because water lifts you up." The seal replied, "I have a secret potion that can turn you into a ringed seal. Do you want it?" The loon happily agreed. They drank the potion and within minutes, they turned into a ringed seal. "I'm a ringed seal, I can float in water now." However, they found a new challenge. "It's so hard to move through water." They looked at the black-throated loon. "I wish I was a black-throated loon and live in the air." The old seal replied, "Each way of living has its own benefits."
The Figrid family was a group of flowers. They were sisters. Their parents died before they were old enough to remember, so they learned how to rely on each other. One day, they all went to get genetic testing for fun. The results were devastating. They were not sisters. They didn't have the same parents. After discovering that, they didn't have the same bond as before, so they all ended up living with their new real families.
When a tiger and lion breed, you get either a tigon or a liger. Tigons and ligers are infertile because the chromosomes cannot pair up, so the cells cannot undergo meiosis and gametes cannot be formed. The same goes for flowers. A Persicaria foliosa flower and a Persicaria lapatifolia flower were in love, but they weren't allowed to breed. The parents of the flowers wanted to have many generations of flowers. If their child bred with a flower of a different species, their grandchild would be infertile, so the line of heritage would stop. However, love is more powerful than hate, so these flowers had a baby anyway, in secret. They hid their baby for many months until the baby became an adult. Then, something unexpected happened. Their child started producing more offspring. This is impossible, they thought. What they didn't know was that their baby was not a regular hybrid. There was an error in cell division, so their child had doubled the set of chromosomes it should have had. As a result, the chromosomes were able to pair up and undergo meiosis. Because their child was able to reproduce, they are a different species now. Persicaria maculosa.
There were 3 people named John Smith. They were all 50 years old. However, they were very different. One was from 1440 AD, one was from the 18th century, and one was from the 21st century. Some time-traveling machine brought them together and they were arguing about who lived the best life. The oldest John Smith said, "I lived the best life because I was able to kill a giant bird that weighed 300 kilograms, the giant mulus. We had a feast after that." The second oldest said, "That's nothing. Heavy birds must be easy to kill. I was able to kill a Caribbean monk seal. Not only did it have a lot of meat, it also had a lot of oil. I made a fortune out of that." It was the youngest one's turn. He said, "I've never hunted anything." "Ha ha, what a coward," said the oldest one. However, that did not affect the youngest man. "But I think I lived the best life. Do you know that the giant moas and the Caribbean monk seal are extinct now? This is because people like you hunted them excessively for selfish reasons. Mother Nature gave you all the resources you could have asked for, and this is how you show your gratitude." The other 2 men stayed silent.
Busy Bella and Lazy Lucy were 2 farmers. They both grew the same things: legumes, orchids, and corals. Busy Bella sterilized everything. She removed microbes, fungi, and insects, keeping her crops completely clean. Meanwhile, Lazy Lucy didn't do anything to protect them. 2 years later, Busy Bella couldn't grow anything, while Lazy Lucy was thriving as a farmer. Why? Because Busy Bella forgot that her plants and animals rely on other organisms. Legumes depend on nitrogen-fixing bacteria that live in their roots. In exchange for sugars, these bacteria provide usable nitrogen that the plants need to grow. Orchids depend on mycorrhizal fungi, which help them absorb water and minerals from the soil while receiving sugars in return. Corals depend on microscopic algae called zooxanthellae. The corals provide shelter and carbon dioxide, while the algae produce sugars and oxygen through photosynthesis. Bella's mistake was removing the partners her system depended on. In nature, nothing truly grows alone. When you mix a red flower with a white one, you actually get a pink flower.
That's not what you told us previously.
This is called incomplete dominance, because both traits show partially. There is also codominance, where both traits show completely.
Huh? How does that look like?
In the case of flowers, this would mean that they have full color patches of each color, rather than a blend. In humans, a classic example is the ABO blood groups.
Oh, I've heard of that.
The gene determines which glycoproteins you have on your red blood cells. There are 3 alleles for it, A, B, and O. For convention, we write them as IA, IB, and I. If you have at least one IA allele, you have one type of glycoprotein on your red blood cells. If you have at least one IB allele, you have another type. If you have both IA and IB, you have both types of glycoproteins. This is an example of codominance. The I allele doesn't produce any glycoproteins, so we can ignore it for now.
As I was saying, the North Pole can't possibly be warm. There's still ice everywhere.
I don't think there is enough, though. Looks like that walrus is struggling to find ice.
Okay, how about the South Pole then? Aw, penguins! Waddle, waddle, waddle. No!
The warmer temperatures are making the ice more unstable.
H2O, are you okay?
Look at that bird. They're struggling to find food.
What does that have to do with climate?
Organisms are not like us. They don't have clocks or calendars. So the way they know which season it is through environmental factors. However, different organisms use different things to calibrate their calendar.
What? So one could be living on July 7th and one could be living on September 15th?
That's kind of the idea. This means that organisms are looking for food before the food is ready. An example is the bird Paris major. They eat caterpillars. Paris major birds' calendars are calibrated based on the length of the day. This one is not affected by climate change. However, the caterpillar's calendars are calibrated based on temperature. This means that by the time the birds are reproducing, the number of caterpillars has already declined.
So there is no food for the baby chicks.
Yeah. The study of how organisms calibrate their calendars is called phenology. A similar situation happens when caribou and the Arctic mouse-ear plant. Look at the tree.
Ew, so many beetles.
These are spruce bark beetles. They attack weak trees. With climate change, there are more droughts, so there are more weaker trees beetles can attack.
Oh.
Not only that, warmer temperatures are making these beetles complete their life cycle faster, so they reproduce quicker and there are more of them attacking the trees.
That sounds like disaster.
It is.
A warm forest.
That can't be changed by climate change, right? It's already warm. Look at that brown owl.
What's wrong with the brown owl?
There used to be more grey owls. However, as there was less snow, the grey owls were less able to blend in, so the numbers have been decreasing.
Oh, just like the example of pollution and moths.
Yeah,